Hi, my name is Fahad Kashani, and this program is regarding flight MH370, the Malaysian airline. It's been almost 9 years, maybe close to 10 years since the airplane disappeared on a flight from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. The actual flight path shows that the airplane, after going north for half an hour, made a U-turn and went down to Indian Ocean and flew for 7-8 hours before it disappeared. There are so many videos on the internet regarding that flight with all kinds of theories. I had my own theory, which I wrote about it in the Persian magazines that I used to write for. I actually wrote my first theory in 2014, about a week after what happened. And the reason I could write it at that time, even though the airplane was not discovered and even though it's not still discovered, was the fact that I knew some things about Malaysia's political situation. And what I want to tell you right now is not about how the airplane disappeared. There's so many videos about that, but I will tell you briefly what I know and what a lot of other people have said. The airplane took a U-turn. Probably the captain got the co-pilot out of the airplane, or not out of the cockpit, told him to go get me a coffee, locked the door behind him, and never let him back. And by using with the air pressure, put everybody to sleep, the 227 passengers and 11 other crews other than himself. And he himself used the oxygen mask to be able to fly while everybody else was put to sleep. The co-pilot tried to contact the Malaysian control center or something, and the logs show that the contact was trying to make the contact even though it didn't go through. But at least we know that he tried. So why would a co-pilot of an airplane start contacting the control center using his own cell phone? Well, we know why. Anyways, the only thing that my theory is a little bit different from the other people. I believe that he has ditched the plane in one piece, and the pieces that have come out of the airplane, which is allegedly like 30, probably after the airplane went down, some pieces, start floating, and including the flaperon. But there are other people who say that he even deprived himself from the oxygen at the end of the flight, so he will just, go unconscious, and then the airplane goes down maybe in a dive mode as opposed to ditching it in one piece in the Indian Ocean. The main question in this whole thing is the motive. What would be the motive of the pilot doing something like this? Was he crazy? I don't think so. He's the lifestyle, everything shows a lively person, flying radio control airplane, flight simulators, and he had 18,000 hours of flight time. So I don't think that was the reason. Was he a terrorist? No, he was not. Was there terrorists inside the airplane? Well, there are two Iranian people who use a false passport, but their whole purpose was to go to Europe. So that's how they chose to go to Malaysia, go to China, and then go to Europe. So it turned out that these are not the terrorist type. They're not extremist type people. So usually if someone does something like this, they leave a note, a suicide note, that this is what the reason I did it, or somebody's going to claim that the reason for this is this reason. I believe that this pilot, that's just my belief, he has left a suicide notice, which the government of Malaysia hid it from the world and said we couldn't find anything. Just like they said, we did not find anything on his flight simulator which would be strange or out of place. And then a couple of years ago, they confessed that he had one flight to go to south of Indian Ocean. Why would someone practice with a flight simulator to go to south of Indian Ocean to land in no airport? That would be very odd. So I think the government of Malaysia from day one knew what has happened. It was not just to their benefit to expose the whole issue. Now, what was the motive? Let's go back to the history. Mr. Mahathir Mohamad, Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, which I have a lot of respect for him. Politically, I think he's a very nice guy, good guy. And for some reason, he could not get along with his own finance minister, Mr. Anwar Ibrahim. So at some point, when he knew that Anwar Ibrahim wants to run as his successor, he did not agree with him, and they start coming up with accusations of child molestation. Yeah, maybe child molestation, sodomy, and stuff like that. And they put this guy in jail. Every time he would try to come out of the jail because there was not enough reasons, again, they put him in jail. So he was off and on, off and on, off and on. And you can imagine, what does that do to somebody's life when you don't know if next week you're going to be in jail or not? Because every time he got, they set him free, then another court came and said, no, he should not be freed, has to go back to jail. So this was going on for quite many years, I would say from the late 1990s. And I used to read that in the newspapers, that this guy is still struggling, trying to get out of jail, and they put him in jail for the same accusation with new names, different names, which is kind of strange. Someone who's accused of doing something like that, why would he continue doing it while he's still under investigation and with new partners and stuff like that? So that I don't understand it. Now, so we go back to the year 2014, the year that this airplane disappeared. The prime minister of the country is Mr. Najib Razak, and Mr. Mahathir Mohamad has retired, but he's still watching. Anwar Ibrahim, who was lastly released because they did not have enough reason to put him in jail, they called him again on March 7th, and they said, you gotta go to jail again for 5 years. And this is like almost 15 years from the first accusations, from the first conviction. So he's again has to go to jail. Now, who was present in that court? A guy named Zahari Ahmad Shah, the captain of the so-called Malaysian airline, the next day, the same airplane that disappeared. So imagine, this is the guy who is interested in this court. Why? Because he's one of the followers of Mr. Anwar Ibrahim, and not only that, he's also related to Mr. Anwar Ibrahim. His daughter-in-law was a relative of this guy, and he had met with him a few times in his lifetime. So put yourself in the shoes of the captain. He has a flight tomorrow, and again his favorite leader, Mr. Anwar Ibrahim, is supposed to go to jail because of some made-up accusations. Everybody knew that these accusations are baseless, but at the same time, nothing could be done about it. And the guy was going through the court system, appealing to higher court, and every time, sometimes they reject it, they set him free. Sometimes they come back and say, no, that was a mistake, you have to go to jail. So this was a roller coaster for Anwar Ibrahim. And this guy had decided, I think, I'm going to do something about it. And I don't have a machine gun to kill everybody in the court, but I have a big airplane that can do a lot of things. So what I'll do, I'll take this airplane to South Indian Ocean. I make it disappear. I create problems for this government of Najib Razak. I embarrass the government, and I'll put it on the first page of every newspaper in the world so they can also understand what's going on. And I'm sure if he wrote that letter, he has mentioned the story of Anwar Ibrahim and so on and so forth. Of course, this letter was never discovered because it's not to the benefit of Mr. Najib Razak at that time to find the letter. And I believe that Najib Razak has done anything in his power to mislead the people who were searching to make sure that this airplane will not be found, because who knows, maybe in the cockpit voice recorder, the last half an hour, he has made another speech about why he's doing it. So, the airplane was never found. Now there are different theories, but everybody agrees that the captain sold the airplane, nobody else. The question is just, did he ditch it, or he dove? Or maybe he let the airplane to dive by itself after his oxygen ran out, or he unmasked himself so that he cannot get oxygen. Now, why is this not coming up at all? Why everybody is trying to cover up this part of the story, which is the motive. Why did the captain have the motive? Well, Mr. Mahathir Mohamad is a very respected person in Malaysia. It would be embarrassing for the people of Malaysia, government of Malaysia, to see that the root cause of the problem was the actions of Mr. Mahathir Mohamad, who wanted to put this guy in jail. Why would the other Prime Minister, Najib Razak, why didn't he want to expose this story? Well, because he's one of the proteges of Mr. Mahathir Mohamad. He doesn't want this story to come out. But now Anwar Ibrahim is in charge himself. It's been less than a year that he's been in charge. Now he's the Prime Minister. Why wouldn't he not bring it up? While I was searching this thing, I found something very interesting. That after he became the Prime Minister, somebody have asked him what was the relation of him and the captain. And first he responds as there's no relationship. And then the next day or next period, whatever, he says, oh, after I saw his picture, I found that, yeah, he is captain, whatever. And it turns out that, well, he's a relative of the captain. He has seen the captain a few times, and the captain was his follower as a party leader. But at the same time, if he brings it up, again, that will be embarrassing for him that one of his supporters killed like 240 people just to show his support or whatever. So now we have 3 prime ministers that don't want this to, be exposed. I was always hoping that if Anwar Ibrahim becomes the prime minister, this thing is going to be, exposed. But this is like a JFK story. Every time a new president becomes a president, you would think that he's going to open up the files and say that JFK was killed by a number of people, not just by one person. But I guess it's not to the benefit of any government to bring it up. So it becomes the same old story after almost 60 years. And this is the same thing. It's like none of these three prime ministers have the motive to say that he did it because of Mr. Anwar Ibrahim. As a matter of fact, Mr. Anwar Ibrahim had said that there are many taxi drivers in Malaysia who support him. Did they kidnap the passengers and kill them for Anwar Ibrahim? Well, I don't know if this example that he brought up is related or not. A taxi driver can kill 1 or 2 or 3 people. And that's not going to become a news of the world, but an airplane like this made a big difference. If it was clear that this is why happened. Of course, it was always covered up. Nobody knows why this guy did this. I believe this is the reason this happened. Thank you for watching, and I'd like to see your comments.